Hi, I'm Dr. Jane Smith and welcome to Vein Care. Now we are doing a series of videos to try to help you with the process as you walk through the different stages. I feel very strongly about education, and at each visit we cover a lot. So what I decided to do was to develop a series of videos that you could watch ahead of time before each visit, and then either take it home or eventually we'll put it on the web. Because I really want you to understand this. My goal when you come to our office is basically threefold. Obviously you want excellent vein care. So that's number one. I guess I can write this down. The one thing I have to tell you is that I am a very informal person. So this sort of setting is very intimidating to me. People always say that I'm very different than most doctors. I sit on the floor to look at your legs. We're very casual around here. So just bear with me as I do this. I also have no drawing skills. So again, hopefully that'll give you a laugh, but realize I'm doing my best. So the first thing you want is excellent vein care. Now I've done this for 13 years and opened vein care 10 years ago. So I have a lot of experience and I have walked through many people, over 5,000 people, walked them through this process. So while I will never claim that I'm the best vein doctor, experience obviously will lead you to excellence. And so hopefully that's what you're going to find. So number one, you get excellent vein care. Number two is education. I love to teach, as you will see. That's part of the reason I'm doing this. And I always feel that you're going to get better vein care the more you understand. So even if you postpone your treatment or if you go elsewhere, I know you're going to get better treatment. Now the last thing, which I feel very strongly about, is, and this is bad language, my mother would roll over in her grave, but I want you to feel cared for. When we started vein care back in 2003, we were trying to come up with the essence of what we wanted our vein care to be, our vein clinic to be. And my contention at that point, having been an internist, was that people craved to be cared for, to be an individual, to be someone that we understood, not just their health problem, their medical problem, but we understood them as people, their family, as basically their essence. So hopefully from the time you call in, as we walk you through the process, as you're treated, you will feel that you are well cared for and treated as an individual. So those are my three goals. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. This is on the website. I really don't like talking about myself, but I think people want to know a little bit about their doctor. But basically, I was born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. So yes, I'm a Yankee, but I've been here for, I think, about 36 years. So I've crossed the line, so I've got a lot of Southern in me. But I was born and raised there and went to college in New Jersey at Princeton, did my medical training, medical school in Cincinnati, and then became a Tar Heel doing my residency internal medicine at Chapel Hill. Now, just for you basketball fans, I have children at almost all of the ACC schools, so, you know, whatever your affiliation, I'm okay with that, and you'll be okay with me. But in any case, so that's how I ended up in North Carolina. Now, I did my training. I worked at a clinic for poor people, for indigent folks, for a couple of years, which was a great experience, and then I did private practice in internal medicine for about 16 years. Now the way I ended up in the vein world is that I was disenchanted with the fact that people were being rushed through the system. And when I heard that the average internist spent 8 minutes with a patient, I decided that I couldn't do that. That's not who I am and how I was raised. So I ended up in this field really just by accident. And it turns out that I love it because it's a great field. It's something that we can really do what I call give you your legs back. And it allows me to spend a lot of time with you. So as you march through this process, you will get to know me and I will get to know you. Now again, the two aspects of care that I focus on are number one, education, and number two, caring of you. So our essence statement from years ago was, we care for you, not just your veins. And when people hear that, they agree that that's true. Now, in terms of veins, so we're going to make a transition now, and we call this Veins 101. Now, that's sort of a silly term, but for those of you who've gone through high school and college, you know this is sort of introductory information about a subject. Now, one thing I learned when I started my training is that even though I was a well-trained internist, I knew very little about veins. So you will find that after you've gone through a consultation, you know more about veins than your doctor. And I'm not trying to say that your doctor isn't wonderful or very bright. It's just a field that nobody has really taken seriously. The interesting thing is that there's a campaign now with various national groups, and they call it Rethink Varicose Veins. And it's a great campaign because basically what they're finding is, even though vein specialty has been around 15, 20 years and a lot longer in Europe, people still don't understand. So my job is to make you understand. Now, the circulation is composed of two sides. Now again, this is where my drawing sort of gets in the way. Now this applies to your whole body, but you're here for your legs and veins, so that's what we'll talk about. So, use your imagination. That's a leg, and that's a foot. Now, one side of the circulation are the arteries, okay? I call those the waiters because they bring the food to the cells, glucose, protein, oxygen, as well as other nutrients. Now, the cells eat and put their leftovers into the veins. So you can call those the busboys, or what I like better are sewer pipes, because veins are just pipes. That's really key. Because people think that veins do more, but sorry, I got that backwards, but you'll start seeing that I am not perfect. But in any case, the veins simply, their job is to carry dirty vein blood back to the heart. Okay, so all the refuse, the leftovers, etc., gets put into the veins, and the veins carry the dirty blood back to the heart. Okay, now the heart is sort of your sewer treatment plant. It sends the blood to the lungs, which then replenish the oxygen, and the liver and kidney filter, and then out it goes again. Now, obviously, it's much more complicated than this, but this, I think, makes it understandable. So it's a cycle. Now, again, veins are pipes. So when you think of high blood pressure, strokes, hardening of the arteries, etc., that's this side. So people ask me, does this mean that I'm going to have heart problems or strokes, etc.? And the answer is no. That's this side. Okay? Now, as I was saying, veins are just pipes. And the veins have a hard job because they're going uphill. I always say that God had a bad day when he made knees and veins. Because knees, as many of you know, tend to deteriorate, and veins have a tough job, and I don't think God did such a great job, but what can I say? So veins have a little bit of muscle in them, and they have valves that open to allow the blood to go north. And actually, I'm going to get different colors here. So in our world, we color the blood flow. So when the blood is going in the direction in which it's supposed to, we use blue. Now, so the blood goes north to the heart, and the valves then close. So the blood keeps going, can only fall a little bit, but it keeps going in the same direction. Now, when you have this disorder, and vein disease is largely genetic. So people who walk through our door may be overweight, they may stand, there may be other factors, but they're here because of genetics. So basically, it's not your fault, okay? So you have inherited weak muscle, and you have valves that are basically shot. They're no longer doing their job, so the blood tries to go up, but there's nothing to keep it from falling, so the blood falls, okay? And what pulls it down is a force that basically ruins our whole body, which is gravity, okay? So instead of the blood going from your feet back to your heart, it now goes in this direction. Now, one of the major questions that I get from people is, Jane, you're telling me that I need to carry the blood back to the heart, and now you're telling me that my veins aren't working. Well, we're talking about just a few number of veins. And the wonderful thing is the body is making veins from the day you're born until the day you die. So you have millions of extra veins. And that's what allows the blood to still get back to the heart. So let's say you close off a street, the traffic will then get shifted to the other streets around. And the body does a better job, which it has spread this blood to millions of extra blood vessels. So with few exceptions, patients still have good circulation. Only in the very end stages do people get into problems. So the key is the veins you bring to me are useless. They're not doing their job. The blood has been shifted, so you're still okay. And we want to get rid of those, just like a weed in a pretty garden. We want to get rid of those, okay? And that's the beauty of this. There are very few parts of your body that you're making new tissue. You make new hair, you make new skin, you make new veins. So that's what allows us to basically restore your veins to their original state. Now, I've done this for 13 years, and I've never seen veins I couldn't get rid of. Now, the question is how much treatment it will take and how long. And I'm not God. I actually have a magic wand, which I don't know what I did with it. If I could wave my magic wand, I would do that. But, of course, that doesn't work. But if you keep the visits that I advise, if you follow my direction, these veins will be gone. Now, because you're making veins till the day you die, and your genetics don't change, you're going to have a certain amount of deterioration. So we do need to keep up with it. And it's really key. If I could stress anything to you, you need to have, I don't know if I'm spelling that right, annual, am I spelling that right? Are there two N's or one N? Well, whatever. It's harder to spell when I'm standing up here. But in any case, you need to come. Why don't we just make it simple for people like me once a year? Just like if you have any other chronic disease, you have high blood pressure, cholesterol, etc., all those you go more often, it's important that you keep those yearly visits. So now we have determined that these veins are not doing their job. So what's the next stage? Well, what we need to do is to define your problem. Now, the interesting thing about veins is they're unique. So if you look at your two legs, you can show me, you can see for yourself differences. If you look at my legs versus yours, they're different. So what we need to do is to define what your system is, and we call it a map because it's a system of roads, and we define that by using ultrasound, which is sound waves, just as if you were pregnant and you were looking at the baby. But we call it a map because it's your unique system of roads. So the example I use is if you were driving from here to your home, there are a couple of different ways that you can get there. You can take the back roads, you can take the straight, and the more direct way, but so you get there just the way the blood gets to the heart, but they're unique. Now the interesting thing is arteries are really not. There are some changes, there's some differences, but that's why you can check your pulse in basically the same places. But for whatever reason, you have a unique vein system. Now, what we need to do to figure out what sorts of, first of all, problems you have and what your treatment, the ideal treatment is we need to define your problem. You go to the doctor, whatever it is, you have neck pain, knee pain, headaches, they're going to do testing. And so this is what we do. Now, at your consultation, before you even see me do this, you have already had what we call a mini ultrasound. And the reason we do that is because I have learned that you cannot tell the severity of the problem by the appearance of the legs. The ultrasound tech is allowed to, or is able to, see the vein problem evolving even before you can tell. The interesting thing is they did a study in Europe several years ago where they took 1,000 children. One or both parents had either spider or varicose veins. And they did an exam once a year. These were 10-year-olds. An exam once a year and did an ultrasound, just like you have just had, and found the average age they could detect spider veins was 11, and the average age they could detect the start of varicose veins or changes in the valves was 13. So this is something that starts at a very young age. If you ask a typical person to describe varicose veins or say who gets them, they'll say great-grandma with big bulging veins. Well, great-grandma didn't wake up one day and have bulging veins. This was a gradual process. And when I talk to my patients, when they think about it, most of them will say that they remember in their teens they were first starting to get changes. So this is something that we'd like to catch at the early stages. Now, you go in and you've already had your quick look. And what that tells us is with these veins that you and I talk about as becoming varicose, she will tell me, good news, Jane, the veins are working nicely and the blood is making its way back to the heart. And if so, we're thrilled. And then we can treat the layers that are closer to the skin. Now, unfortunately, what most often happens is people will come in with what they think is something minor, and my ultrasound tech will come back to me and say, Jane, you may not be able to see it on exam. She may have no signs yet, or he, but, oops, sorry. See, that's me. What you see is what you get. But she will say, guess what? These veins that are very subtle are actually not working. Now again, to repeat what I said before, you came in, a lot of you, thinking that you had something minor. Some of you, it was obvious, you had bulging veins, and a lot of you, the majority of people, have discomfort. But some of you just think it's something minor. Now, just as if you have any other test, I use the example for a woman of a pap smear. You go in, the doctor sees nothing, you have no symptoms, but they detect abnormal cells, and that's through the microscope. They don't wait until you have cervical cancer years later. They do something at that point. So that's what we want to do. Now, the average vein that, again, the vein that you and I call the varicose vein, in the typical person who comes to see us is about 2 millimeters. And I hope you can see that. But, so that's teeny. Now, I'm going to blow this up, so this is way out of proportion. But here's the vein, and it's starting to fail. So let's say you're in your early teens. So the blood is now going down. And what's happening is it's beating against the blood, the muscle wall of the vein. And so the vein is getting weak, and it's starting to dilate or enlarge. Now again, this is way bigger than the typical vein. Now all of this is below the skin, okay? Now eventually it gets big enough so that it protrudes a little bit. And right now I'm pretending you have one vein. And I can probably see it at that point, but it's subtle enough that you probably can't see it. Now, it gets a little bigger, and you say, yep, I now see it. Then it gets a little bigger, then your family see it, then your friends see it, then everybody sees it, and then it keeps going, and that's the great-grandma vein that most people think of as varicose veins. But again, great-grandma didn't wake up that one day. This was a gradual process. Now, what we'd like to do is to catch you in this stage before the vein is even visible, or at least in the very early stages. Now, you and I can't detect that just by looking, but that's what the ultrasound tech can detect. So that's why we do the ultrasound, because again, a lot of times I'm surprised when she comes back to me and says, guess what, Jane? These veins are not doing their job. Now, the important thing for me to explain to you is the veins that become varicose veins they really do very little. They carry 3% of the blood back to the heart. So even when they're normal, they don't do a lot. Now remember, the veins you bring to me are not normal. They're not doing their job. And you have millions of extra blood vessels. So the body is very smart, and it's already taken care of the blood flow. So that's people's number one question is, how is my blood going to get back to the heart? Again, these blood vessels are useless. They do very little even in their normal stage, and the blood has already been spread out over these millions of extra veins. Now, a key point, and that is the major vein, what my patients call the main vein, or the medical terminology is deep vein, the one where you get blood clots, DVTs. That is deep within the leg. So if you were to cut your leg in half, deep within the leg, there's a bone. And right next to that is the main vein, the deep vein, which is the largest vein. That is the workhorse of the vein system. So I don't know how familiar you are with Raleigh, but I think of that as 540 or 40, or maybe it's easier for you to think of it as 95. That carries the majority of the blood. That carries 95% of the blood. Okay, so that is key. So the deep vein, or if you want to call it the main vein, that is what does the work. So we could get rid of the veins that become what you and I call varicose veins, plus the surface veins, and you would still be okay. Now, when we do your ultrasound, we check this to make sure that it's normal. Almost everybody, very few exceptions, this is fine. That is also another reason that we can treat these surface veins, because you have this and this is normal, okay? So, let's see, a couple of other things. Before treatment, what can you do? Let's say you either aren't ready to do it or have to wait, or you have to wait for your insurance company. What can you do? Well, unfortunately, the pills and creams that are sold don't do anything. As I told you, these are pipes. They're not working. The beautiful thing is we have extra ones, so we want to get rid of those. And so that really is the answer. There's nothing that will make veins go away or cause them to normalize, to become normal. Now, in terms of your symptoms, which I'll go into in a minute, but the best thing you can do is walk. You can walk, jog, run, Stairmaster, anything where you're using the calf or the foot muscle pump. So a lot of people, without even being aware, will sit at their desks and they'll go like this with their legs. Or if they stand, they'll do that. And what happens when you use the calf muscle pump is you basically circulate your own blood. You shoot the blood back to the heart. Now again, that's not changing the veins, that's just helping circulate your blood and will help the symptoms. The other thing is people who have excellent muscle tone from exercise, it's almost like you're wearing your own compression hose. So the better your muscle tone, the better or the fewer the symptoms you have, and the better you actually do with treatment. So as you're waiting for treatment, get out and exercise. Now, one question is, why do you get symptoms? Now, I always bet people $20 that they have symptoms because many people think they don't. And by the way, I don't collect. But over the years, I've never had anybody disagree with me. Now, basically, let's pretend this for my leg. The vein, the blood is stagnant in that blood vessel. And as it sits, it's like a stagnant pond. So the debris, the refuse, etc., increases. Now, the nerves are in the skin. So that debris, those toxins, irritate the nerves and cause the symptoms people get. And everybody's different. Aching, burning, cramping, restlessness, fatigue, heaviness, throbbing. Everybody has different symptoms. Now, the symptoms are worse when you are sedentary, when you're sitting, when you're standing, when you're lying down, not moving. Now, a lot of people will attribute the discomfort in their calves to other things. They'll say, well, like in my case, I didn't realize that I had this problem, and I thought, well, I worked all the time, I stood, I have 4 children, of course my legs ached. I had no idea that I had this problem. So many people ascribe this problem to other things. But what I encourage people to do is to take a day to pay attention to your legs. See how they feel when you wake up. See how they feel during the day with your activity. Try to notice them on a day when you're not very active or when you're standing, you're baking, you're standing in line at the grocery store. Notice if you exercise, if your legs feel better. If you take a hot shower, which causes the blood vessels to dilate, notice how your legs feel then. Invariably, when people pay attention and they really think, they all agree. You know what, Jane? I had no idea. My restless legs, when I sit or at night, they keep me from sleeping. I didn't know that could come from this. Same thing with cramps. One of the big issues that people have is poor sleep. Bad veins can interfere with your sleep. So a lot of people will notice that they have more energy and less fatigue because they're sleeping better. Now, again, what can you do about that? The only thing right now you can do is to walk. And then, of course, you need to be treated. Now, compression hose, and if you would hand me those, Drew, the green box. But compression hose, you'll see, we will prescribe them for you, and there are many reasons for them. But these are prescription, and you can either get them here or you can take the prescription and get them wherever you want. But these are what are called Class 2 compression hose. And the classes are determined by the tightness or the compression. So these are Class 2, which is defined as 20 to 30 millimeters of mercury. But these are the ones that are used for people who have symptoms. And if you travel more than a couple of hours in a car, or if you fly, we encourage people to use these. Now, these are hard to get on, they're hot, they're uncomfortable. So most people really don't want to wear these, but I always tell folks if they're having problems, if their legs are hurting, especially people who stand, teachers, hairstylists, etc., try them and see if they help. Now, one thing that I will tell you is most insurances require you to wear these for a period of time. And they want to see if your legs will feel better. I go against the grain because my feeling is that you have bad pipes and you have new ones, why not treat? We have trained people in prevention, which you can't do with this, and early intervention. So why not treat when the problem is in its early stages? There are fewer treatments required, less downtime. So I really encourage people to get their treatment early. You can try the hose, they may help you, but realistically, when people are honest, they don't wear them, especially in North Carolina where it's so hot. But you do need those, and after the treatments, depending what we do, we will have you wear them maybe for a week or two. But again, you should have those for when you travel. So we talked about walking, we talked about compression hose, but the exciting thing, again, is that we can treat these. So that is the next step.